right, so the Ibo Aro Confederacy is what we're going to look at now. To do that, we're going to look at the book Murder at Montpelier, Ibo Africans in Virginia. And of course, we're going to start at the highlighted section at the bottom. It reads, the structure of the export trade in slaves from Calabar, in which Ibo Zai's coastal big men brokered exchanges between newly arrived European captains and their agents, and a series of Ibo speaking headmen in the interior villages or slave specialists such as the Aro, combined with particular social and political changes in the broad region to make Ibo peoples the Calabar Coast principal source population of slaves. All right. So again, these Ibo coastal big men brokered the exchanges of slaves with the newly arriving European captains. And a lot of these peoples that specifically done this in the Ibo nation or people was the Aro group, the Aro tribe or the Aro clan. It says by the 1720s or 1710s, at the latest, local slavers reached extended relatively far inland. Their alliances with intermediaries, especially the fiercer itinerant Aro traders and their allies, who were protected in their travels by the divine sanction of the supreme deity Chukwu, and hence called themselves Umu Chukwu, which of course is children of God, enabled the slavers to conduct captives along formal paths and roads to the heads of the creeks and lagoons flowing to the coastal towns. Hailing from the oracle of Orochukwu, the Oro and their dependents relied on the muscle of their armed porters as much as their reputation for retribution. The Oro established a series of settlements throughout the Igbo heartland in the middle of decades of the century and ran major and minor fairs at larger villages all across Igbo land in the 18th and 19th centuries. The slave trade out of Calabar reached further inland over the centuries. In the 17th century, individual Calabari and associated coastal villages apparently had raided each other for slaves. All right. So, this is really what was going on during this time period. One village, perhaps apocryphal, called Agbani or Bilal or Beli, was remembered as the most disruptive and warlike in this initial phase of violence accumulation. One anthropologist has written that in this early period, Bile got its slaves by sacking neighboring delta villages rather than by trade with the hinterland. All right. So again, Bile got his slaves by sacking neighboring delta villages rather than trade with the hinterland. All right. So they was just going into different villages on the Nile, or excuse me, not the Nile, but the Niger Delta, and just ransacking their villages, man. And of course, trading them along and passing them on to the European traders on the coast. We're going to read one more source over the Igbos and their role in the slave trade. And to do that, we're going to go to the Physical Anthropological of Southern Nigeria, a biometric study in statistical method. And of course, we're just going to read from the highlighted section in this source. It reads, although large numbers of Igbo were exported as slaves from Bani or Calabar and the other oil river ports, these were not obtained in slave raiding expeditions of wars, but were mostly debtors, criminals, those who had committed abominations in their village, and other people whom their communities wished to be rid. And if you're familiar with the novels or the stories of Alua Equiano, he tells us the same thing. All right. He tells us that it was people or there was fellow Igbo men raiding their villages and capturing them and selling them off. And he also told us that they were selling off people who committed crimes, people who committed abominations. So again, this is what was going on during this time. This is why this specific video is called The Untold Histories, because again, I know a lot of us were not taught this, and even a lot of people I speak to, they disagree with the notion that Africans were selling Africans.